Hello and welcome to the finals of Grand Prix San Antonio. I'm Brian David Marshall. I am joined in the booth by Hall of Famer Patrick Chapin, and we are watching Andres Prost with Affinity playing against Reed Duke with Abzan Death's Shadow. Reed Duke, one member of the Peach Garden Oath, looking to take a little piece of history here, unify the belts, get the constructed team trophy to go with their limited team trophy. This is one of the most dominant trios just in Magic across the board. 5 of 8 top 4 appearances when these 3 players have played together at a team Grand Prix.
More than half the time?
Yeah, top
we're
4.
We're talking about, like, for instance, there was, 1,500 something players in this event? That's incredible. That is incredible. It just is a big testament, a testament to the nature of the team format.
So meanwhile, Andres Prost comes out of the gate here. He's got a Volt Scourge and a Memnite.
And it's a testament to these guys. This is 3 of the absolute best players. I mean, some of the best players in history, let alone current.
We get a bauble out of the gate from Reed Duke, followed up by an Inquisition of Kozilek. He sees a Galvanic Blast, a Cranial Plating, and Adam Jansen versus William Huey Jensen. I can see here on the screen.
So Reed Duke does have 6 cards, which not the biggest deal as long as he hits his land drops. But he knows he's playing Affinity against Affinity Game 1. There's lots of 7-card hands that even if they could cast their spells, he would throw back.
Yep. Here's a Mox Opal. There's a Steel Overseer, and now an attack for 2 from Andre.
And now we're seeing one of the weaknesses of the Abzan style compared to some of the others. He does have Fatal Push in his deck, but without Lightning Bolt, he is or Tarfire or any of that stuff, he is going to be a little bit slower coming out the gate, particularly on the draw. Fortunately, he does have the Fatal Pushes, so he's got that going for him. But
all right, turn 2 for Reed Duke, and already a swarm of cards for him to deal with here.
Right, and one of the problems here is that even if he puts down some kind of a blocker like Tarmogoyf or whatnot, the holding off the Memnite for a little while doesn't really do a lot. He's got a Steel Overseer. Not only will the Volt Scourge continue to put some damage down, the Inkmoth Nexus potentially will grow as a threat very quickly, and that's assuming he has nothing else worth playing, and that's not even counting that eventually the Steel Overseer and the Memnite become very legitimate threats in their own right.
All right, but he does have Fatal Push, and he takes that Steel Overseer out, no doubt envisioning the nightmare scenario you laid out there.
And here we have the turn 2 Traverse.
Wow, and that Traverse has already Delirious, so he is going to go.
Yeah, very
get
often.
a Death Shadow. Look at this. Mm-hmm. Wow. All right, you see the players moving their cards a little bit over there, so they're in better frame. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so common when you have Street Wraith and Mishra's Bauble as options for the 0, then you just need to be able to play an Inquisition or a Thoughtseize, and then also a Fatal Push, and you're there.
All right, Inkmoth Nexus gets animated, and everybody comes into the red zone. Here's an Ornithopter for Andre. Looking a little worse after the Steel Overseer is killed.
Yeah, there's a lot of multiplication type things, a lot of multiplicative bonuses, and if you get rid of the things doing the pumping, sometimes the pumpies, if they're not pumped up, you know, they are kind of puny. That said, I mean, Affinity often will sometimes look like it's slowing down, but then pick back up in a hurry.
Now, interestingly, of course, Reed Duke playing the Death Shadow deck, so he's always looking to he kind of wants his life total to be, you know, in a somewhat uncomfortable range so that his Death Shadows are pretty big. He also has the Tarmogoyfs available to him in this deck.
And there's always a funny dance that takes place between the Inkmoth Nexus and Death Shadow, as Inkmoth Nexus can actually progress the game without growing a potential Death Shadow, this, unlike most of the other threats in Prost's deck.
Yeah, there you see that one poison counter on Reed Duke under his 12, so keep an eye on that. See if somehow that gets into the magical, near the magical double-digit range. And there's Tarmogoyf.
And Death Shadow.
And Death Shadow, yeah. So
Only a 1-1 for now, but not a big deal. Just a few galvanic blasts are just about it with regards to ways to quote-unquote punish the Death Shadow. And if you are down in Death Shadow range, it is better if they galvanic blast the Death Shadow. And there we see it.
There you go. Galvanic blast.
Yeah, after sideboarding, though, a lot of the Affinity decks have access to cards like Dispatch, but Prost is actually without any of those. He instead has Dismember.
Okay, Inkmoth Nexus gets pumped by the Blinkmoth Nexus.
I like that.
3 poison counters. Meanwhile, Tarmogoyf goes on the offensive. And now Grim Flare comes down. It's a 4-4.
And it is interesting, Volt Scourge staying home. Like the possibility of Volt Scourge staying home. I mean, typically you're going to keep wanting to get in there to gain that extra life. But at a certain point, sometimes it ends up being a situation where you don't even want to pump the Death Shadow. This game doesn't seem like it'll go like that, though.
There's Master of Ethereum. Boosts up both. It's a pump-E. A pumper, I should say, actually. And pumps the pumpies, as you referred to them. Vault Scourge and Ornithopter get in for an extra point of damage.
So it is currently a 5-5, but because of the mana available from Inkmoth Nexus, it can turn into a 6-6 at will, thanks to Blinkmoth or Inkmoth Nexus activating. Now, obviously, if Reed has something like a Fatal Push, he can shrink it back down, or if he can trigger Revolt, just kill the Master outright. But I think we're at a pretty dynamic little spot in the game here where Reed's life is low enough, and he's starting to get some poison counters, but mostly his life is low enough that the fact that Prost has gone wide with a Master to help buff things is putting Reed under a ton of pressure. But Reed, with multiple heavy hitters in play and a couple cards in hand, could easily sneak a turn here or there.
How about an Abrupt Decay?
That's that's fantastic. That's exactly what he wanted to see.
He was thinking about getting queued, I think. He was like, well, what happens if I attack? Who's he? Maybe thinking about the trample from the Grim Flare if he blocks the Grim Flare, but in the end.
And we see another Traverse.
Wow.
Very likely another Death Shadow. You know how some decks have some of the fancy stuff, like either the Renegade Rallier or Gore-Clan Rampage or any of that stuff? Reed's fancy stuff is he has 2 Grim Flares. Mostly he just has 4 Death Shadow and 4 Tarmogoyf.
Does he also have... and
that's it.
I'm trying to remember who was who there. So he doesn't have the ability to Ranger Vios?
Well, that's out of the sideboard.
Oh, that's in the sideboard. Okay.
Yeah, he's playing in the sideboard. Yeah, they actually took a gamble.
Another invitational card, by the way.
Yes.
We forgot to mention.
Lots of invitational cards showing up. Not a lot of Void Mage Prodigies or Shadow Mage Infiltrators this weekend, but what are you going to do?
All right, Andres Prost is going to fall to 9 from this attack, and Reed Duke gets to sort of sift through the top of his library. Look at those top 3 cards, and then decide which ones he might want to ditch and which ones he might want to leave on top in whatever order he chooses.
Yeah, I mean, very commonly the approach is to pitch 2 and plan to just keep the snowballing going next turn, but sometimes if the 2 perfect cards are on top, sometimes you just got to go with it. But he is going to just keep 1.
And how good is that card? Ditches 2 Tarmogoyfs.
Yep. Although at this point, the third ground-based threat, particularly one without trample, we're I think at the point of diminishing returns on all that. I think what Reed really wants is some sort of interaction, some kind of removal spell.
He's looking for more Fatal Pushes here.
Yeah, Fatal Push, Murderous Cut, Abrupt Decay, any of that.
Prost down to 1 card in hand.
And while Reed is far from out of the woods, I think he's turned the corner and at this point starting to build an advantage. But it's so close. It's such a thin, narrow margin that it's really going to come down to what is that card that he kept that he likes so much.
So it gets in with Scourge, Memnite, and that time chooses the Blinkmoth Nexus. Says, picked a lane.
Well, at this point, Reed all the way down to 5. I think there's just not enough time to poison him out. He won't be able to contain the Trampler. And by putting the poison counter on the Tarmogoyf, it's a slightly less threatening Tarmogoyf for future turns.
Yeah, it puts the Ink Moth Nexus in the way. It is a -1/-1 counter. Let's see what Rich's Reed can throw away this turn.
This one is getting right down to the wire. Prost at 6, but functionally probably looking to be at least 7 after that Volt Scourge hit, unless Reed Duke has an instant speed removal spell.
So
the thing is, if he doesn't, Prost can beat air. Prost can beat the board. The problem is that Reed has kept a card each time.
Yeah, he's not whiffing here as he looks at the top 3 cards of his deck.
Yeah, like what did you keep if you can't beat the board?
This turn gets rid of a Bauble and a Liliana of the Veil.
Interesting. Still no white mana for Reed. Not a big deal game 1.
And there is another Death Shadow for him.
Not a deal at all game 1, apparently, actually.
Yeah. So really at this point, Andres Prost he's just like, please, come on, cranial plating.
Well, plating would be, phenomenal here. But I think Galvanic Blast would be just about the best thing you could hope for, because at least, with plating, Reed can still, whatever creature gets the plating, Reed can still potentially just kill that creature.
Sure.
But or Abrupt Decay the plating itself. However, a Galvanic Blast, there's not really anything Reed can do about that.
So in comes the Vault Scourge.
And if this hit is successful, Reed will be low enough for a Galvanic Blast to win. Prost is really just trying to make sure he has enough blockers to survive.
Get a little bit of call your attention to a game score update. William Huey Jensen up 1-0 on Adam Jansen. Eldrazi Tron overjunned 1 game in the B match. Shockingly, Greg Orange and Owen Turnwald still embroiled in game 1 of Blue-White Control versus Grixis Control.
We actually just got an update from the floor. It looks like Greg played another land and passed the turn.
Owen just said go.
And it looks like the Vault Scourge ended up deciding to stay home.
Wow.
Kind of interesting. That is tough.
He's at 6. Everything is gigantic.
The Trampler is also just really tough. Really tough.
Yeah, there's not a lot of 2/2 Tramplers.
No. Not as many as there should be. We see
Abrupt Decay on the Vault Scourge. That should do it here.
Oh, no. I mean, he's got Ornithopter and Memnite to block. Even if he takes 4 from Grim Flare, he's still only at 2.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Now, of course...
2 with an empty board.
But he does have Galvanic Blast, and he's got enough mana. Exactly. He can attack with the Ink Moth Nexus.
And that's him rubbing his hands together there.
And then he still has the Mox for the Galvanic Blast. That ain't it.
That was an Arcbound Ravager. I don't think that's going to do it.
It's close. Are you sure? So it's so close, because if he plays the Ravager, he can Springleaf Drum off the Ravager to power up the Nexus. And then the Mox, the Drum, and the Ravager makes 3 on the Nexus. It's 4. He's a damage short.
Wow.
He's 1 short. If only that Spire of Industry was a
Darksteel Citadel.
Oh, so close.
His teammate's like, yeah, that's nice, but you're 1 short, Scoop. All right. We're going to take a quick break, and then we will check in on some of the other matches going on around here at the tables in the finals of Grand Prix San Antonio. Welcome back. We pick up at Table B with Adam Jansen of Jund playing against William Huey Jensen, the Hall of Famer, with Eldrazi Tron. William Huey Jensen up one game here. How does this matchup look to you after sideboarding, Patrick?
Well, typically sideboarding doesn't really help the Eldrazi Tron in almost any matchup anyway. When your deck has 0 colors, you do have slim pickings for sideboard cards. On Adam Jansen's side, however, he's got a little bit of ground he has to make up because he's starting in a hole against the Eldrazi Tron, which typically prey on fair decks. Here, however, he does have access to some nice things like Terminate, potentially even just stuff like Fulminator Mage to be able to disrupt the Urzatron, you know?
We saw Hugh not as reliant on that Tron package the same way we've seen other decks, can operate pretty nicely without it, but still something you want to bring in here.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think you do because first of all, being able to block and sacrifice is going to be kind of nice against a bunch of the stuff that Huey has going on. But second of all, you got to be winning with something, and a variety of his alternatives are just not that good. Finally, I think you want to have a diversity of ways to attack Huey. I mean, the last thing you want to do is push yourself in a position where Chalice of the Void comes down, which Huey's going to be looking to get a Chalice on 2. And if you can get a Chalice on 2, it's actually going to make things a little bit awkward for Jansen, who relies on Tarmogoyf and Scavenging Ooze. Now, of course, Abrupt Decay is uncounterable, but Jansen actually, his build only has 2 Abrupt Decays. So a Chalice on 2 could actually be a little bit annoying.
What do you think about something like Painful Truth for Adam here, like the ability to just,
I think that's just very ambitious.
Yeah.
I think that's very ambitious. I wouldn't hate a Painful Truth in a deck full of, like, I don't know, if you were playing some kind of like, there's some kind of control decks, like maybe even a Grixis deck that can empty its hand and plays tons and tons of 1-for-1s. I think this Jund deck is a little bit slow to be wanting a Painful Truce against the Reality Smasher deck.
Also have a score update for you if you take a look. And Turnwald up one game over Greg Orange in blue-white control versus Grixis control.
Oh, okay.
All right, we are underway. Raging Ravine leads things off for Adam Jansen. There's an Urza piece with an Expedition map for Huey Jensen. Blood Crypt comes down, and wow, we are just gonna Ancient Grudge your Expedition map right now.
Send a message. Obviously, Walking Ballista, another Ancient Grudge target potentially, but Huey also relies on things like Mind Stone, and then obviously sometimes the Chalice of the Void will come down on 1.
Right.
And that's to say nothing of Batterskull. We mustn't speak of Batterskull. Just Jund things.
Jund's just going to flashback the Grudge, take out the Walking Ballista, takes a point damage, and there's Dark Confidant. Greatness.
At any cost. And that's making that Walking Ballista really sad to be on the wrong side, you know.
Well, now we see why it had to be grudged right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
See Huey leaning over, talking to his teammates a little bit.
Yeah, I think Dark Confidant, that's potentially at least like sideways surprising one, but Huey does have a second.
Yeah, another Walking Ballista.
I'm not so sure Huey would have just ran out the Walking Ballista right there if he didn't have another artifact in the ready. Are we going to see some kind of a Liliana? Or a
No, we're going to see Painful Truths.
And you're right.
Painful Truth, pay 3 life, draw 3 cards.
You gotta hand it to him. When you're just Dark Confidant into Painful Truce against the Eldrazi Tron deck, they have to take you seriously. They have to know you're capable of anything. You are a person who values drawing cards.
I mean, that's the best part of Magic, isn't it?
It's pretty good. I like the friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drawing card is close second.
Okay. Okay. So Matter Reshaper comes down for Huey.
And so far, things are going, pretty well for Adam, all things considered. In fact, you don't even have to consider all the things to be seeing this going well. The fact that Huey still doesn't really have much going on the board. He does have a pretty good little mana development. So things could actually tilt towards Huey relatively quickly if he has a pretty good mix of expensive cards. But at the moment, the fact that Jansen is preserved 2/3 of his life total while still being up multiple cards at the spot. He's up at least 3 cards at the moment.
He's looking for it like Fulminator Mage here, maybe something like that. Take out that Eldrazi Temple.
Oh, wow. Yeah, potentially. I'm not even sure that he wants to attack Huey's land at the moment. I think that what he wants to do is just make sure that he's not taking any damage from creatures and then start putting a little pressure on Huey. Because obviously, if he gets the Fulminator Mage and Huey doesn't have any more land, things are great. But one of the things that can be tough is if Huey's a little flooded, spending your turns Fulminator Maging might be setting you back because Huey's casting threats each turn.
So Tarmogoyf and Scavenging Ooze were the play from Adam Jansen. But reality sets in.
And does it ever?
Yeah, and
artifact, creature, sorcery, land. So Reality Smasher can trade with the Tarmogoyf, but the Ooze remains.
And that Ooze is actually able to get out of hand pretty quickly. Plenty of targets for it to eat here.
Now green mana is at a premium.
Yeah, only 2 green sources.
But there's going to be plenty of food over the course of the next couple turns, because once he gets up to that magic 6/6 number, it's a lot harder for Jensen to break through.
So there's Colligan's command.
Brutal.
Hit the Reshaper, make you discard a card.
Are we going to see the map go to the graveyard just a little bit slow in the spot? And the alternative, there is also, like, if he pitches the Matter Reshaper.
Yeah, he's getting rid of the map. He's like, I know the way.
It is a nice little sweat each time on what you get from the Matter Reshaper. Not sure Relic of Progenitus is as good as it gets normally, but it's pretty nice when your opponent has this Ooze.
So now Thoughtseize. Thoughtseize looks at, was that an Endbringer?
It is an Endbringer.
And a Matter Reshaper.
Yep. And Huey is 1 mana away from playing the Endbringer. So now Jansen has to try to do a little bit of gambling, a little bit of decision making and he does decide to gamble.
Wow.
He does decide to gamble. Now part of that might also be that Endbringer can just die to 1 card. Matter Reshaper, if Jansen's plan is to kill whatever threat Huey plays, Matter Reshaper might not really be the biggest threat. I mean, Matter Reshaper might be a bigger threat given that it replaces itself.
Relic starts to do a little nibbling away at Adam's graveyard.
Yeah, I got a feeling that
Reality Smasher comes in.
That is a
Adam
big
is
chunk.
Suddenly very low on life.
And he needs another green mana if he wants to be able to kill the Reality Smasher with the Ooze, but it looks like he might actually just be resorting to Maelstrom Pulse. No, he's going to be playing... Oh, even better.
Oh, he's got Liliana of the Veil. He's going to go down to 1 counter. Doesn't even have to discard.
No. I mean, Huey could have sacked whatever creature he wanted. He just chose the Reality Smasher.
You have no one to blame but yourself for this. Scavenging Ooze gains a little life back for Adam, goes up to a 4/4, and tries to turn the tables here. So now you see Jensen getting some creatures out of his yard, trying to provide a little less fuel for the Ooze. But there's the Endbringer. Now it looks like there's a Maelstrom Pulse in hand.
Yep. Things are going very swimmingly for Adam Jansen.
He is down a game, so he has work to do here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there you get a look at Endbringer. It's 5/5. You get to draw cards. Creatures can't attack or block. You get to deal damage.
Yeah, Endbringer is definitely a weird kind of flexible Eldrazi with lots and lots of options, but I definitely have seen a lot of Endbringers dying this weekend.
All right, so now discard with Liliana. It ticks up to 2, so he's going to have another answer potentially for any kind of solitary big monster Huey plays next turn, other than a Reality Smasher.
Yeah, I mean, without having anything like, for instance, Drowner of Hope or anything in that space, Huey is mostly just in a, Reality Smasher or bust type of situation. But he does have a few little twists and turns, depending on where that Liliana is at in the cycle.
So Huey cycles, by the way, his Relic of Progenitus there. Adam has an opportunity to activate his Scavenging Ooze in response and get a counter. Gain a little life. He's back up to 9.
And with Seagate Wreckage, Huey has potentially another card available to him. The Eldrazi deck is pretty well set up against discard. Now we got an interesting thing Liliana trying to Edict the Matter Reshaper really doesn't accomplish much. But at this point, Liliana's discard isn't accomplishing much either. And he does use the Edict.
He's like, I'm going to get rid of the devil I know.
Yep. He knows that's going to be in the way. Anyway.
Yep, gets him a Ghost Quarter.
And it's nice that it goes straight into play, because the Seagate Wreckage, in this case, can still be activated. A little bit of Scavenging Ooze math. Is that a Chandra in his hand?
Yeah, he does have a Chandra.
That could be a cute way to win the race.
Attacks for 5.
Possible 6. Looks like he's tapping a green.
Okay.
That Matter Reshaper. Feed me, Seymour. Feed me.
Yep. All right. Up to 6. Adam goes up to 10. It's going to drop Huey to 4.
Classic Mirror Universe.
And here is Chandra, Torch of Defiance. Immediately goes up, not going to play the card. 2 to you.
So now Huey both has to take care of the Ooze and the Chandra.
Draws his card with the Seagate Wreckage. Draws a Wastes for his turn.
So even if he plays, the problem is he just can't kill Chandra with a Walking Ballista. He just doesn't have enough mana. And that's to say nothing of the Ooze. It's too far behind.
And that's going to be the game. Wow, Adam Jansen evens things up. A game apiece here with his Jund deck against Eldrazi Tron from William Huey Jensen. 1 game each here at Table B. Of course, Reed Duke up a game. And Owen Turnwald up a game. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back, and we'll check in on that control matchup that you've been waiting for us to get to, Patrick.
Woohoo!
Welcome back to the finals of Grand Prix San Antonio. I'm Brian David Marshall in the booth with Hall of Famer Patrick Chapin, and we are watching Greg Orange with blue-white control against one of your fellow Hall of Famers, Owen Turnwald with Grixis control.
Yeah,
so fellow Hall of Famer, fellow Grixis fan.
Yeah, he's doing the Bolas's work here. He did win game one, which is typically the game where, I mean, it can go either way, of course, but like blue-white control, slightly better set up for game one, given how pure of a control deck it is. However, after sideboarding, things actually improve for Owen. Owen has access to, well, first of all, he gets to take out a lot of the dead removal cards. But second, and this is very important, he has access to things like Molten Rain, which is just devastating against Celestial Colonnade, and then a nice little mix of Vendilion Click, Counter Squall, and possibly Surgical Extraction for countering a key Snapcaster Mage.
Oh, wow.
But I don't know that he's really going to do it. I mean, Greg only has 3 Snapcasters, and that's not really how Greg ends up winning anyway. Greg's threats are basically one-ofs. I think we're just going to see a real battle for card advantage, and that Owen's going to try to use things like Cryptic Command, Tasigur, Activate Immediately, or Colligan's Command to try to stay ahead, whereas Greg is going to try to activate a Planeswalker to key moment or stick a Sphinx's Revelation. There's also the possibility of the mana disruption. I mean, Greg's 4 Spreading Seas and 4 Tectonic Edges, along with Crucible of Worlds. No, I'm sorry. Actually, it looks like he has 4 Ghost Quarters. 4 Ghost Quarters and 4 Spreading Seas, along with a Crucible.
So it looks like Greg Orange broke a fetch land for Island and cast Serum Visions on turn 1. He's keeping his cards frustratingly off camera here.
Owen would love to have access to Fulminator Mage, but unfortunately Reed needed it, as Reed's deck was the one without red. So the way they split it up, Owen ends up getting the Molten Rains.
So turn 1 Ancestral Visions for Owen Turnwald.
Definitely a strong play here, as a lot of the counterspells Greg has, things like Spell Snare, Mana Leak, they're not well equipped to fighting an Ancestral Visions. Even something like Cryptic Command, that's a really tough way to do it. Yeah. If you just have to tap out on your own upkeep, or on their upkeep, it's so easy to just walk into a Mana Leak or something. I love the Counter Squalls in Owen's deck, and there's a little cumulative effect between all the Counter Squalls, the Molten Rains. It starts adding up.
Yeah.
Colligan's Command, sometimes they'll get a couple damage in there. Certainly Snapcaster Mage. Yeah, this is just a well constructed color philosophy.
Well, if you watched him play in the semifinals, I mean, it was really just a masterclass in playing the Grixis deck against Gerard Fabiano.
Yeah, I mean, Owen is I'm familiar with the man's work. He's as good as they come.
There's just this, multiple players just walking away from the feature match era after it was over, sort of like talking about just the Colligan's Command Snapcaster cycle that Owen gets into in the late game.
Yeah, with both Colligan's Command and Cryptic Command for looping Snapcasters over and over again, these Grixis decks are typically the hardest working Snapcaster decks. Like, they put the most miles on their Snapcasters. And it looks like, yes, sir.
Wow.
Yep.
Molten Rain taken out. That was a Colonnade.
It was a Colonnade. Yeah. And Greg, unfortunately, paying the price. He has 1 Dispel in his sideboard, 2 negates, 1 Dispel, and in this spot he had the Dispel.
Oh no!
But he could not. He could not dispel the Molten Rain.
All right, so he's just going back for more Serum Visions. Snapcaster Mage just keeps digging, keeps filtering through.
I mean, Snapcaster Mage is just about the best card in both of these players' decks. The ability to just be whatever you want and also a little bit more. The fact that it's a legitimate threat. I mean, game 1, they both have plenty of extra removal. But after sideboarding, removal's slightly at more of a premium. So the Snapcaster Mage, it's not free to kill it. There
is Tasigur. You talked about how early that can come down in this match and what a board presence it has.
One of the things I love about Tassiger in this spot is that short of like a path to exile, a lot of what Greg might be able to do to interact with the Tassiger will leave him shields down for that Ancestral Visions. Owen has definitely picked this spot and now has Greg kind of forked. Now, of course, Greg could path to exile the Tassiger relatively efficiently, but that also leaves him with no Cryptic Command. And he certainly didn't have a counterspell that could counter Molten Rain last turn, and Ancestral Visions is a sorcery. So with just 3 mana, unless Greg drew something this turn, and Greg's just not even going to try to bluff, of course. Why would you? And he just plays the
Jace. Jace, Architect of Thought, and immediately ticks it up to 5.
So this is exciting. With both a Tassiger and a Visions about to resolve, Owen is like just he's in like with life. Like this is that Jace.
He just gave life a set of keys in a drawer.
Yes. And if he can get that Snapcaster Mage out of the way, he can potentially, first of all, hit the Jace hard enough that if the Jace were to use the card draw ability, it would die. But second of all, even if the Jace were to try to tick up, the Tassiger represents being able to kill it in 2 hits.
So 4 cards go into hand this turn for Owen Turnwald.
So far.
So far.
And with that Creeping Tar Pit in play, if Owen really wants to, he can trade his turn. Now, of course, the Snapcaster Mage is still potentially a chump blocker. But if Owen plays a land and a bolt, I don't know how many bolts he's going to have after sideboarding against Greg, though. We'll see.
They became Molten Rains.
Yeah, you got to make room for the Counter Squall, the Vendilion Click, the Dispels, the Molten Rains. I got to imagine Owen doesn't have time for such paltry interaction like Lightning Bolt.
So Tassiger attacks Jace, and the Snapcaster Mage steps in the way, but we see a Snapcaster Mage for another Molten Rain. By the way, it also redirects some damage over against Jace. So Jace now falls down to 3 loyalty, matches the 3 lands Greg Orange has in play here.
Yeah, I told you. I mean, like, Greg Orange's mana base is under attack. And the fact that Tassiger costs so little to put out,
wow.
Plus Tassiger represents a potential card drawing threat if the game goes long enough. But either way, Owen is getting further ahead. Also, it's not like Greg just has unlimited duels that are the kinds he wants. I mean, this Hallowed Fountain is 1 of 2 in his deck.
And he wanted it pretty bad. He paid for it to come into play untapped here.
Right. After this, he's going to have to fetch up basics. He still has stuff like Seachrome Coast, but at this point, the Seachrome Coasts are coming into play tap too. And that's Colonnade too. Same story. I'm loving Owen's spot here.
So Greg Orange has to deal with that Tassiger. That's going to be job number 1.
And so we have some updates from the other tables. William Huey Jensen and Adam Jansen tied up 1-1. And Reed Duke and Prost also 1-1, which means that at this point, it's anybody's game.
All right, so Path to Exile on Tassiger. Ticks up Jace Architect of Thought. But again, you did mention that there is a Creeping Tar Pit there, so he can start, really pressuring Jace if he wants to take a turn off.
People are literally playing Jace Architect of Thought. And you're telling me, we need to unban Jace the Mind Sculptor.
I wasn't telling you we need to unban it. I was asking you if you thought it would be reasonable.
Yeah. I dream of such a day.
Okay, now Path takes down Snapcaster Mage. Now Ghost Quarter takes out the Creeping Tar Pit, and interestingly, Owen is out of lands. The guys have looked at each other's deck lists. He knows how many basic lands there are, so there was no payoff for that extra Path or that Ghost Quarter for Owen.
Now it is interesting if Owen gets hit with another Ghost Quarter or a Crucible to bring back Ghost Quarter on that swamp. He's off black mana.
Oh wow!
I mean, he's got some dual lands in his deck, and Owen very wisely. Yeah, Owen's okay. He's a little fetch land rich, so he's going to have some options to go find it. But each, a Crucible in particular could be particularly annoying. In particular. So Jace continues to frustrate, just slowly climbing.
Now, with Owen's offense gone, is there any temptation to just tick Jace down there and get some cards.
Definitely. But in this spot, I think we're in a spot where there's this tension with Ancestral Visions looming. That's the biggest threat on the horizon for Greg that he's going to want to deal with. It might be the case that he wants to save his Jace activations for when he knows what problem he needs to solve. That said, he's only got 3 land. Land number 4 would be a real peach.
Land not a problem for Owen Turnwald.
I'm not sure I would say that, but certainly a shortage, not a problem.
All right, so Cryptic Command to bounce the Jace, and Greg Orange is finally found a target for that Dispel. Dispel missed a couple of other key spells early on, wasn't able to target some sorceries, but is able to counter Cryptic Command here.
One of the advantages to taking Jace up there is that it didn't leave Jace at 2 loyalty, where a potential Culligan's Command or Snapcaster Mage might do some damage, or Molten Rain for that matter.
All right, but now it's time.
Ooh.
There's a Crucible of Worlds.
Whoa.
There's an Ancestral Visions. There's a Path to Exile. Owen's going to split this, Crucible or no?
I mean, I have to look at it, but in general, I would guess it's Crucible. You know, the Crucible is like one of the best cards Greg could possibly have right now, and a very, very serious problem for Owen. Yeah, this is very dangerous. This is very dangerous for Owen. He has 2 Watery Graves, one of which is already in play, and that Swamp. The Polluted Delta in play is an implied access to the final source of black mana, but after this Watery Grave, this Swamp, and that Polluted Delta are gone, there is no more. You know, assuming the Delta has to fetch up a black. That said, Greg is going to just want to build his mana base for a little while. He might just be like, I don't need to shut off Owen's colors right now. I think what I need to do is just deploy as much land as I can and use Crucible as a personal Howling Mine for the best cards.
It looks like, yeah, he's not taking Crucible.
Wow. Interesting.
He's going to take 2 cards. He did have a land that turn.
Interesting.
And he's going to suspend Ancestral Visions. So despite the opportunity to get a Wasteland Crucible going,
mm-hmm.
He goes in a different direction here. All right, Ancestral Visions number 2 ticks down for Owen.
So it looks like Owen's still has several options. I mean, he is definitely long on land, but the visions from earlier still gave him enough extra gas that at this spot he's doing all right considering he's facing down a Visions and a Jace.
Yeah, the Tension Sphere was the draw for Greg Orange. Not particularly
Not the
exciting
best.
at this moment.
Not the best yet.
Now we see Owen start to break some of his fetch lands. Does he still have a Delta under there, or did he break that? He broke that already.
Yep, I think he broke it. But there is 1 land underneath the Swamp, so TBD.
Oh, there's the Watery Grave. So
at this
all the black
point, might as
sources
well.
accounted for?
Yep.
All right, both players.
There is 1 more tar pit,
Oh, okay.
but you just can't
But I
fetch
can't
that one
search
out.
it. Yeah.
Greg drops land number 5. Jace continues to pump up.
Wow.
Now we're going to see is this the showdown?
Here's Ancestral Visions. We're going to Cryptic Command that.
This is a big counter squall. A big counter squall if that's what this is. I mean, maybe it's something else, but...
Maybe it's a Cryptic Command?
Oh, yeah, that's... If there's no... he only has 1 Dispel in his deck. That's a big Cryptic
Greg
Command.
Orange was really rooting for Counter Squall there because he does have a Spell Snare in hand.
So this is interesting. Owen did choose to draw that extra card so he'd get 5 looks at cards this turn, rather than bouncing the Jace. worth noting, Owen's having to play with no Thoughtseize type stuff, partially because Reed took it all. Thoughtseizes, collective brutality, Inquisition, everything.
He's got all of it.
All of it.
No splitsies.
No splitsies. I want it all. Reed's like, you're lucky I let you use surgical extraction.
All right, here comes, we're going to keep, in fact, dig even a little bit more here for Owen. I think he's going to play Serum Visions.
And good on him. Serum Visions is a good time when you're playing Grixis. It does mean no Cryptic Commands threat, though.
Draws a card. He's going to decide what he wants to do with those 2 scries on top.
So if Owen can successfully deal with this Jace, which is not a trivial matter. I mean, it's not like he has Dreadbore or anything.
So what's the long-term implication of this Jace on this match?
Well, it's always an implied card draw engine when Greg needs more action. You know, as long as Greg's got stuff to do, it's promising to tick up. But in terms of actually stealing something, it's a really slow way to Ancestral Visions. You know, it's definitely
so
one of those matchups.
The ultimate is not something that Owen's particularly concerned about so much as just this recurring source of card advantage.
I mean, in theory, the ultimate could be a potential threat at some point. You know, like maybe he'll take a Tasigur and when he's got 8 land or something and be able to activate the Tasigur a couple times. But in general, I mean, this is definitely a matchup where Jace is not ultimating just because he can.
Right.
He might continue to tick up.
So Owen splits it up with Ghost Quarter in one pile and Ancestral Visions and another land in the other.
Seachrome Coast, yeah.
Seachrome Coast, okay.
Yep, I like this split. I think that the game is going to be decided before that Visions resolves. And that's the gamble that Greg is going to gamble that I'm wrong. And or at the very least, Owen just couldn't afford to. That's the only real split he could do, as you don't want to put the 2 land together.
Yeah. So another Ancestral Visions gets sent to the principal's office, and Greg is getting set to look at a bunch of new cards next turn.
Yeah, we'll see if that resolves. Although I don't know. I mean, if Owen is playing Tasigur here.
Yeah, plays Tasigur for 1 mana. Leaves his graveyard pretty stacked. But he doesn't want to spend any money any mana to fight over that path to exile.
It looks like he's saving his battle for the Visions. So at first we see Cryptic Command.
So now it looks like he's saying bounce the Jace.
Bounce the Jace. Bounce the Jace. And he still has 5 mana open. Probably. I mean, that Polluted Delta can still find a Steam Vents, I think. So yeah, he technically, I think, has 5 mana.
Greg Orange thinking about this Cryptic Command.
Think long and hard, Traveler. This right here might be the deciding moment. And we have an update. Adam Jansen has defeated William Huey Jensen 2-1.
Wow.
With Jund over Eldrazi-tron.
So if Owen manages to win this, that means the Game 3 between Andre Prost and Reed Duke will determine this match. If Greg Orange wins this, we still have a little bit of magic left ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so Jace back in hand. No resolved Ancestral Visions for Greg. What is he going to do here? What's his plan for winning this game?
Well, I think it all starts with trying to sculpt a scenario where, well, one of 2 things. Plan A is this Jace. If he can stick this Jace, but he isn't mana short of being able to protect it with that Cryptic Command, but he's going to just use it anyway.
Yeah, here comes Counter Squall.
Okay.
But Spell Snare will counter the Squall.
This is a.
But here's a Dispel from Owen.
Well, with Plan A down, that leaves Ancestral Visions in 3 turns. as Greg's big hope to get enough advantage to try to get back in this. I mean, it's not like Owen is even really doing that much at the moment. They just keep fighting over resources. There is a serious laning phase going on here.
I mean, are we if we're Greg, are we still waiting on Elspeth Sun's champion as our way to win this match?
Right. I mean, in theory, he can win with Snapcaster Mage or Celestial Colonnade, but that is a tough way to do it in this matchup. Elspeth can do some serious damage. And the moment, Owen looking pretty good with just the amount of extra cards he has, but one of the challenges, some of these cards, like for instance, we see a Molten Rain that's not exactly at its best yet, and Owen very wisely saving it for the Celestial Colonnade. Right. And then Owen with an Engineered Explosives doesn't really do a ton, but you got to have something. One possibility is to eventually destroy a timely Detention Sphere.
I mean, one of the things about a deck like Greg's, which has such a discrete number of win conditions, is you can really zero in on what matters in terms of what you want to fight over. So you saw that Jace as being super important, and that was obviously where Owen focused, multiple cards to dispatch it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he could use his Molten Rain, but I'm going to wait for something that might represent a way for Greg to end this game.
Yeah, and it's not like the extra damage is at its best right here.
Right. So Colligan's command. That is going to pick up a Vendilion Click.
And then Greg discarding something.
And now Vendilion Click, we're going to assume he's going to aim it in Greg's direction.
Greg's going to have to Cryptic this before it ever comes to that, though. Anything else would be ludicrous. Yeah. Kind of makes you wonder why the Colligan's command stuck, but I guess Greg wants to, make sure that Owen spends all his mana, because the last thing he wants is to have his Cryptic command get Cryptic commanded.
Right. Doesn't want to lose a counter war. All right, here is Cryptic command. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Still a bunch of cards in hand for Owen here.
Yeah, I mean, the earlier visions definitely continuing to pay dividends.
So instead, Snapcaster Mage is the play.
This is interesting. Owen's still representing Counter Squall with that Polluted Delta and then the Watery Grave down at the very bottom.
And so Snapcaster Mage is targeting Cryptic Command.
This is a big one.
And he does have the Counter Squall. And, kind of foils Greg's plan there. And now the Vendilion Click is going to resolve.
Man.
By the way, it's going to resolve with a Cryptic Command still in Greg Orange's hand. Remember, he used that, he had to choose which card he was going to put at risk.
Man, Greg just trying to sneak the Cryptic Command, and he would have got away with it, too, if it wasn't for the meddling from Owen.
All right, so he does decide, going to target you. Sees Detention Sphere and Cryptic Command.
Easy take the Cryptic Command.
Yeah, Detention Sphere not particularly menacing at this point. I mean, maybe it takes out a Vendilion Click, but whatever.
But even then, Owen gets to turn that Explosives into functionally a Vendilion Click, trigger and all.
Yeah. Owen winning this battle on multiple fronts right now.
Yep. Although 2 visions is not nothing.
That's not to say there aren't other fronts that will be lost in the future.
We'll see. Owen's scrappy.
All right, here comes Ancestral Visions. But we're going to see Snapcaster Mage targeting Counter Squall.
And now Greg is suddenly
who needs bolts?
Yeah. Greg is suddenly under a lot of life pressure.
Well, here's a negate.
So he knows that's what he drew, which means he knows that the Cryptic in his hand is good.
And there it is. Cryptic Command. Bouncing the Snapcaster Mage back to hand for Owen Turnwald. You've talked all weekend long about the command locks with Snapcaster Mage in this deck. Both Colligan and Cryptic.
The kid's done it again. The kid's done it again.
Wow. And Greg Orange is down to 5. So he's going to detention sphere that Vendilion click. He's going to get in for 2.
Man, with
Wow.
Greg at just 5 life, this is a very precarious situation. It's not going to come to that other visions. I just don't think so. And remember, Owen still has that Molten Rain. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Molten Rain representing 2 damage. He's got the engineered explosives, which can free his click.
A lot of interesting stuff. He can even free the click during Greg's draw step, which is kind of interesting.
And that's so he is going to play engineered explosives for 3.
And Greg is completely handless.
Oh, wow.
You know, we already saw that cryptic command get turned into a negate that Owen was able to counter.
Right.
And then the detention sphere.
I don't think Ancestral Visions is going to win this race.
This is a hard one. This is going to be a really hard one.
So Greg has drawn 1 card.
And it looks like we are going to see engineered explosives on the detention sphere.
Yep. So Vendilion Click's going to enter the battlefield. Going to see what you drew.
And that's it.
Wow. Owen Turnwald.
Mm-hmm.
Masterclass in playing Grixis control. And that means Owen Turnwald's team has 1 match. Adam Jansen has won 1 match for his team. That means Game 3 between Andre Prost and Reed Duke is going to determine the winner of Grand Prix San Antonio right after this. All right, after 2 days of magic here in San Antonio, it all comes down to this game, this match to determine the Grand Prix San Antonio champion. Owen Turnwald 2-0 over Greg Orange. Adam Jansen 2-1 over William Huey Jensen. And now Andre Prost and Reed Duke are battling it out in their rubber game here in the finals. Patrick Chapin, what's going on here? We see an Inquisition of Kozilek taking a look at Andre Prost's hand here on turn 1.
This is a fantastic spot for Reed to play a discard spell when Prost's hand is, I mean, it's definitely on the weaker side to start with, but Prost's hand was all about turn 1, Memnite Drum, turn 2, Etch Champion. And by taking the Etch Champion, he has left Prost with a very paltry line of aggression. You know, like, the Affinity deck does not want to be mana flooded. And while this may look like an impressive turn 1, we know Prost has got nothing else. Nothing else in the chamber.
Nothing to pay off here.
And Reed doesn't know it yet, but Prost actually drew another land for the turn. This is a fantastic spot for the Duke.
Right, drew a Spire of Industry that we hadn't seen in that Inquisition hand.
Yeah, I mean, discard spells can be a little bit of a mixed bag against Affinity, since so often they can empty their hand. However, early on, they're absolutely fantastic because very, very often the Affinity deck is either, short on its big threats, or it's a little light on mana, or it's a little light on curve for the enabler. And so much of the power of the Affinity deck is packed into like 12 or 14 payoff cards. Being able to take one is a big deal.
What does Prost want to see here to swing this back in his direction?
The biggest, he just wants to.
Oh my gosh!
Let me rephrase. At this point, I think what Prost really wants to do is see Gurper Aether Grid. One of the challenge. He does have one wear tear. Tear. But one of the challenges with Prost's build is he actually took a gamble. He has only a single enchantment removal spell in his entire 75.
Wow. So Stony Silence has come down, and that's really going to put a hurt on Andre Prost's artifacts. He still is able to attack with a Memnite, attack with an Inkmoth Nexus here.
Yep.
But Lingering Souls.
Okay, now what he really needs is Gurper Aether Grid. Gurper Aether Grid would both be an answer to the Lingering Souls and a way for, like, a path to actually winning the game for Prost, despite the Stony Silence, since it is the Gurper Aether Grid that has the ability.
It looks like he did draw a Master of Ethereum.
I mean, it's cute. Zemaster is a 3/3 to start with. It's cute, but it's still just so hard. It's so hard of a grind to try to win with Zemaster through Stony Silence. You can do it, but it's hard.
Yep. The 2/2 Memnite gets in.
And it's not really risking the Memnite for the 2 Spirit tokens, because Reed does know about that Galvanic Blast that the Springleaf Drum and Master could play if Reed were to get any ideas.
Springleaf Drum's not doing anything.
Good point. There you go. Good point. It's powering up his Master. Yeah.
That's true. It does have a function here. Wow. Stony Silence has just been absurd every time we've seen it this weekend.
Yeah, it definitely, there is a selection effect. Most of the time we see it, people are sideboarding it in, but man, has it been great. It's been like literally A+. And not just against Affinity. I mean,
we saw it against the Clark Clan Ironworks deck.
Clark Clan Ironworks.
Just absurd.
Yep.
This is a huge
Tron.
Huge match here for Reed Duke and Peach Garden Oath, looking to become the first team to win both a Team Limited Trios event and a Team Constructed Trios event. I'm sure we'll see some other teams do that as we go through, but they're going to be the first ones to do it, and just could demonstrate this unbelievable. You think about Team Limited, right? Like people are known as their team as Team Limited specialists, but to be able to do it in both formats is pretty absurd.
Well, I mean, I think it's widely understood that Reed Duke, Owen Turnwald, and William Jensen are limited specialists, and it's widely understood that they are constructed specialists.
Yeah.
They are generally just magic specialists.
Yeah. And I think that's actually a very accurate term, because it's basically just what they do, right?
They also ball out of control, as we can see right here.
Lingering Souls keeps things coming. Here's an Etch champion for Andres Prost. I mean, Reed's down to 10.
Yeah. I mean, you can't ask for too much more. I mean, Etch champion, master of Ethereum. Those are legit threats. Those are legit threats, even with Stony Silence in play.
Welding Jar pumping up the master of Ethereum here.
Yep. And Reed's got to be careful, because if he ever takes a master hit, it won't take much for the Etch champion to finish him off. Man, this is an exciting one.
Yeah, Andre's not under a ton of pressure here. In fact, look, you see the Lingering Souls are both going to just jump in the way of those two creatures.
Interesting. You know, one of these days, the Duke is going to just damnation, and that's going to just be all she wrote. I don't know if that day is today, but one of these days.
How many damnations does he have available to him in his deck after sideboarding?
Actually none. It looks like Owen has the damnations. Brutal.
Well, Reed did take all the other cards, so it's only fair.
Yeah, that is only fair. Reed, with a bit of a gamble, he's actually playing both Yixla Jailer and Scavenging Ooze as bullets to go get, without a Kataki. No Kataki.
Wow.
Yep. Yep.
So here's Abrupt Decay. It's going to take down the Master.
Very reasonable sequence. Now, if you're Reed, are you still pressing it?
Well, he's going to traverse the Ulvenwald here.
Now, is it a Death Shadow? Is it a Ranger? I think he's too short on mana for the Ranger.
I think it's probably going to be a Death Shadow here. Oh no, it's going to be Scavenging Ooze.
He wants the extra life. That's his plan against the Etch champion. That's not too bad.
No, and he's got 2 Lingering Souls still in his yard.
Mm-hmm.
So he can fog for days if that's the plan.
And he does keep the beatdown going. One of the things he's got to be careful about, he knows that Prost still has that Galvanic Blast, right?
Right. That's been there since the opening hand.
So Reed's at a virtual 6, looking at an Etch champion that's implying a 3-turn clock. Whoa.
Wow, another Master of Ethereum off the top for Prost.
Whoa.
And he's a little bit gates down here.
Man.
Yeah.
And this is...
Takes 3, falls to 7.
This is definitely punishing for that 1 point of damage from the Lingering Soul token attacking. There are 4 Master of Ethereums in Prost's list, which is quite the departure compared to a lot of the other lists that only play 2.
So there is Scavenging Ooze.
The Duke still needs to find a way to get the Master off the table. But, however this one shakes out, you've got to hand it to Prost. This is a lot of game being played after Stony Silence is in play.
Yeah, your reaction once the Stony Silence come down is that his deck is just going to be completely neutered. But he's still been able to just attack with these giant artifact creatures. Plays another Springleaf Drum, and that's going to further pump up the Master of Ethereum. Still has that Inkmoth Nexus as well.
And these Etch champions are a key part of his anti-Stony Silence plan. They do anything. But they also are just very, very, very difficult for Reed to block.
So Andre's doing a little math, checking with his teammates. Both teams will have all 3 players huddled around at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And, wow, so Galvanic Blast is going to go at the Scavenging Ooze here.
So that does put Reed back up to 8.
Yeah, he activates it.
Presumably he'll chump the Master, which means he will take 2.
He is going to fall to 3.
Oh, yeah, the Etch champion, 3 extra damage as well.
Yeah.
His back is against the wall.
Picks up a little extra poison as well.
If he doesn't answer the master this turn, he's dead on board.
Is Andre Prost going to beat turn 1 Inquisition of Kozilek, turn 2 Stony Silence?
From the looks of it, I mean, the Duke's never going to surrender.
And he just drew a Galvanic Blast. He doesn't slow roll it. He just shows it to him, and there's the hand. Andre Prost wins Grand Prix San Antonio for his team for Hot Sauce Games with Adam Jansen and Greg Orange, defeating the best team of players in the game in Reed Duke, William Huey Jensen, and Owen Turnwald. Andre Prost with Affinity. And, if you're going to
Stony Silence.
Through a Stony Silence.
Through Lingering Souls.
Through multiple Lingering Souls.
Yes.
An Inquisition that sort of really, tore the key brick out of his Jenga stack of artifact pieces there on turn 1. An unbelievable game of Magic by Andre Prost. Really, I think both of us, thought from those first 2 turns, we kind of were writing a script in our heads of how this was going to end. And Andre Prost is like, no, I've got some rewrites here.
Yep.
This is not ready. This is not ready at all. So what an amazing job by him. And
what a way to cap off an amazing weekend. So many crazy matches. And that was a great one to end on.
But also interesting,